Fenton here with Brewing Code for Life. What we're going to be doing today is we are going to be going over the idle games to study for the test. Going over a few concepts that you need to know, which you should know, and just everything about the idle game, what the target goals to learn were, and some more advanced topics on it. So not everything I go over that's going right now is going to be on the test, but things that I do go over have a chance of being on the test, and everything that is on the test is covered in this movie. So you might want to pay attention, take some notes, which I highly recommend, because I always find that writing things down always helps me remember them. First thing is, I don't feel like any programmer needs to know these import statements, because when you're looking up the code, you just copy those over and then you never look at them again. So none of those are on there. They are nice to know, but you'll never have to write them. The next one is you should know this part right here. Extends applet, implements mouse listener, comma runnable. What these do is this makes it an applet. This creates the mouse listener to work. It imports all the statements, and the runnable makes the thread count work. Right here, the run method. All that stuff is because of that implements runnable. So the next thing we got to know is, of course, all the different variable and object types. Please realize there are variables, which are like ints, and there are objects, which are graphics, image, dimension, so all those other things. What you need to know is, you need to know that thread, graphics, image, dimension are objects, along with audio clip, buffered image, thread. Those are the objects. The variables you need to know are boolean, int, and of course string. So string Fenton equals best teacher ever, and that's what a string looks like. The next thing you want to know is the concept of null, which means with this statement I declare the variable and I initialize the value to be null, and null is just basically means nothing. It's the empty set. There's no value there, but we do declare it to be a value so that it still will work. It's like a failsafe. You don't need to know static and final, which basically means this is a constant value which just never changes. Private means this variable cannot be accessed outside of this Java file or this object. If it does, it has to be use a accessor or mutator method to do that. You can't assign a value or take the value directly from the variable. I would like you to know that this is a way to declare multiple variables all at once. I'm not assigning a value to them, I'm just saying that they are integers, and later on I'm going to assign a value to them. An audio clip is basically a variable or object variable which holds the sound file to be played, looped, or stopped later on. Buffered image is a photo. Basically, we assign the photo later down below where it is a JPEG, PNG, and we draw the image. So we're going to do g.draw image, this file name, xy with length, comma null, parentheses, semicolon. The thread is the thread count, which makes a delay, and then it goes on with the program. Basically, it slows down the computer so that the human eye can actually see what's going on. That's the main point here. Otherwise, it would be going way too fast, and the hardware limitations the monitor would make it so you couldn't see anything. We have enemy y equals enemy y plus enemy speed y. The other way to write this, he could have wrote these two lines do the same exact thing. The other one is, if you wanted to decrement this, enemy y equals enemy y minus enemy speed y, and to change this it would be minus equals enemy speed. Now the interesting one is down here he put it the other way. Please realize that the other way means that I am setting enemy speed equal to negative enemy speed y. So I'm negating the value of this. I'm not, otherwise this would be 0. So please understand the difference between this and this. Even though it's literally just these two characters changed, they mean completely different things. This version is shorthand for this, and this is negating the value of enemy speed y. Please remember, you still need to know all the conditionals to make a if statement, what's inside the if statement, a Boolean, and all the operators and such to make that work. This line of code right here, you should fully understand it, that 1000 means 1 second. When I change this update rate, he uses a variable. If I divide by 2, 1000 divided by 2 is 500. That means I update twice a second, 3 times a second, 4 times a second, which this would be 250. 5 times a second would be 200 because 1000 divided by 5 is 200. And 10, which means this would be 100, means 10 times a second. The next one you should know is init is where you initialize the variables. We resize the image, get the image size, and then we create the off-screen image, which we're going to have buffer graphics be drawn onto with these two lines. We're using that height and width in order to do that. The common mistake here is to put the resize. If we put that afterwards, what happens is we're getting the size from the initial values. We're setting the off-screen image usually to 500, 500. And then we're resizing the image to 700, 700. But buffer graphics only draws to 500, 500, leaving us a 200 by 200 pixel L-shaped where it does not even draw. A lot of people had that issue in their code. I just wanted to address that. Okay, so the next thing you want to know is the try-catch. What this does is it tries to load this file. If it works, I try to load this file. If it works, I try to load this file. And if any time it breaks, I have an error that I pop out. This error message could literally just be a semicolon. You don't have to produce anything. So it could look like this. It could look like this. It could look like this. Spacing doesn't really matter, which is pretty cool, because then I can write it like this and save lines of code, or space in general. The URL is basically a file link. Just like you type in www.google.com to go to Google, you type in the URL, which what this does is the get code base means get the file location of the Java file and then extend the picture file at the end of that. So when I go to Windows Explorer, and if I go to the lesson plan, up here, see how this is this directory? This, all the way up to lesson, is this, the get code base. The picture file name is the actual file. Like if this was a .java file, it would be package.java, would be my picture file. So what's happening is this function is adding in a backslash and then putting in package.jpg. And that's the file location that the program is trying to load the file at. Once we get that file location, we read the image with this line using this U1. These have to match. And then we assign that value of the picture to the photo. And then later on, we can call this value to draw the picture. We draw the picture right here with a g.drawImage, the photo variable name, object name, the x, y, width, and length, and we have to put comma null at the end. Again, I just want to reiterate that you should definitely know how to make a double if statement where you're anding or oring them together. This should be common sense at this point. It should also be common sense that it's equals for a Boolean and equals to assign a value. You don't need to know this code right here. We're talking about the calendar to get the clock. Could know that calendar date and date format are all object types. Just because this is old material doesn't mean I still won't test on it. You still need to use it, so you need to know it. You should definitely know how to play a song. You need to know it should be song variable name, object name, the function play, loop, or stop with parentheses and a period to separate the two with a semicolon at the end. You should also know that if you go like if I play two songs next to each other, this one you will not even hear. You will only hear this one. And it'll lag a little bit, and all the rest of the issues that come up with playing two songs directly next to each other, this is definitely a logic error. You always want to know how long your songs play for and adjust your code accordingly. At the very least, you should make a counter so that you know how long it goes, and then you can play the next one after that counter finishes. Which is quite easy to do using your thread count right up here. Okay, so one major concept that you need to know is the difference between buffer graphics and G. What G does is, on the screen that we have, this is my applet size. If I wanted to draw images, I would draw images like this. I draw 4 images, or let's just keep on drawing images, and all that time makes it so that there's a huge delay in doing that. What buffer graphics does is, instead of drawing it on the screen, it says, let's make this fake drawing over here off the applet in the computer land and say, I'm going to draw everything over there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that image that I drew, all different things on top of it, and then in one line of code paint it to the screen. And what that does is it decreases the amount of delay of drawing all the objects, because all the objects are drawn in a memory holder and then placed instantly on the screen. That significantly decreases the lag. To do this, you need these lines of code. You need to clear the previous image. So what that does is it deletes this. You need to draw to it, which I did a drawstring, which literally could be anything. I draw, and I put a picture in there too. And then what I do is I draw the image to the off screen, draw the image, this image at 0, 0 on this applet. And I draw it to G because it's Paint G, which is located this. Paint Graphics G, that's why it's G. And that makes buffered images work. Now, the advantages behind this is because we're only using one line of code to draw to G, we instantly get the results, we instantly see the image, and we have more time between having the finished product on the screen and the next refresh. What this section of code here does is it makes the buffer graphics work. It updates PaintG so that there isn't any lag. Next thing that you need to know is mouse clicked. What this does is when you have a mouse event, which is a object type or variable if you want to go really basic, we have ME, which me.getX gets the mouse, where the mouse clicks, the X coordinate. We are then assigning that value to a variable that we use in our if statements. You do not need to know these if statements by the back of your head. Trying to write that on a test would just be crazy talk. You should understand it, but you don't need to write it. Again, we're also getting the Y value of that mouse click. And it's kind of sad when Mr. Fenton puts a little troll where he puts it in clicked, so that everyone puts their code in clicked, and instead of pressed, which pressed, even though I said don't use, I was hoping people would play around with it to realize that, well, clicked means pressed, released, and then that's the coordinate. Otherwise, when I press, that's my 1x coordinate. If I move and let go, it's judging off that first pressed. So just be aware of that. The mouse event, if there's movement there, it messes up. But however, when you press it, If you put your code in here, there would be no lag in every click. Every click would quote unquote work. That was my little headache that only a few people picked up on. If you picked up on that, good for you. I'm proud of you. You are a programmer. What you should know is that buttons don't really exist. You create buttons yourselves through an if statement. With that if statement, you should definitely know how to make a counter, like a click thing, where either you decrement or preferably increment. An easier one than this would be monies equals monies plus 1. You should know that line of code for the clicker button, because that's what this whole assignment was about. You should also know that if you put it here, if you put it up in enemy clicked, so if enemy clicked, if I don't have this clicked equals false, I'm going to constantly give myself more monies until I click again. And that's pretty much it. What this does is it stops the run method. If you ever wanted to stop the program from running, this is mouse exited, where if you take your mouse and it exits the applet, that happens. This is when the mouse comes back into the applet. This is when you release the mouse. And this is when you press the mouse, the one everyone should have been using. Anyways, that's the first program. Let's take a look at the next program. And I'm using 2 programs just so that everything is covered. This is Taco Tycoon, which I thought was pretty good. Add mouse listener just activates the mouse listener because you can turn on and off the mouse listener with this. But it's usually easier to do it a different way. You should know that if you want something to happen every repaint where it's based off of the sleep counter, it should be right here. If you want to do every repaint, it would be down in paint, but a lot of times you're repainting a lot more than your thread counter, so in order for it to only happen when the thread counter, that's where the code should go. So your auto clicker, so monies equals monies plus auto clicker should be up here. Font is not on the test, but it is good to know. I'm creating a font, giving it this name, and this is just a variable name. The end user never sees that. I assign the font, I assign the font attributes, and the font size. You should definitely know how to comment. You should know that this is a start and this is a stop right here. So this starts a block of comments, this ends a block of comments, this comments one line, and if I went like this would be documentation comments, that's why it's blue. These are usually located on the top of the program and also on the top of every function if you're doing professional commenting. This is interesting. They didn't do double buffering correctly. Because as you can see, this is down in their paint, which means there's a little bit of lag there. If they put this up into their init, and then instead, because I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to change Taco Hell. What they should have done was they should have said Taco Hell equals temp Taco Hell, and did this where this was temp Taco Hell up in init, and then only ran this one line of code, which would happen in like a millisecond, because you're just taking this pointer and assigning the pointer to that, which is literally like 6 characters, compared to reading a file every time you paint when taco count is so high. That's pretty much it. I hope you guys do well on the test, and thanks for listening. Yo, and definitely totally subscribe and like below, because that'd be so cool if you did, because I gotta get my surfer tan on this summer and I gotta have them bling blings going on. Anyways, peace out.